Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchick and Adrian Guarzales. How's it going, Adrian?
Here in sunny Austin, Texas, it's going good.
Oh man, I wish we had any of that. It is 40 degrees out today, and I'm thankful for it. Although I am at home wearing shorts.
It's actually not that sunny. I'm at home wearing a bathrobe.
We're doing a weekend recording as we usually do when a new set's coming out.
And everyone, I just want to make it clear. Normally, Mike and I wear suits and ties for this, so this is really casual.
Yeah,
casual Saturday for us.
Yeah. You know, we usually try and make this a classy affair, but we figured it's the weekend. We've got a Masters set about to release. Let's take it easy a little bit. Just relax. Let's take keep first, and then we can move on to the meat and potatoes of why you are here. And I'm sure no one is going to listen that hard, but let's do the upkeep. First up, we've got Original Magic Art. Original Magic Art is a wonderful store. They have all sorts of interesting art prints, playmats, dice bags, and tokens with art from throughout Magic's history, as well as the history of the rest of the art world. They are constantly getting new stuff in. They're constantly working with official Magic artists to license their work for official playmats. They make really solid stuff. We stand by their products 100%. If you are interested in sprucing up your play area a little bit, you know, making things a little bit fancier, getting a little bit classier, if you're going to buy from them on checkout, use the code commentary, all caps, as spelled as it is in the name of this podcast, and you'll get 5% off. Once again, that is commentary, all caps, spelled as it is in the name of this podcast, and you'll get 5% off. And also, you know, give us a little bit of a kickback, so you're helping keep the lights on here. What do you have for us, Adrian?
Well, as I'm sure some of you know, we do have a patron. For just $1 an episode, you too can hear the full show, including the pre and post shows, and you get access to our patron exclusive Discord channel, which every week I say this, and every week it's just more true. Very active, a lot of active folks on there. Come check it out sometime.
Yeah, it's good. So this week we've got one topic and one topic only, and that is Masters 25. So this, before we get into the actual spoilers, I do want to talk about the fact that they did you see the article addressing the future of the Masters series?
No. Will you tell me what that said?
So the basic gist of it is that moving forward, Masters series are going to be focused on specific formats, but rather they're going to be focused on thematic similarities. So stuff more like iconic Masters, where everyone has let Wizards know, maybe not the best name for the set, but where it was focused around the iconic races of Magic. Moving forward, they're going to be trying to Masters sets rather than just having modern Masters or eternal Masters or, you know, what have you. So moving forward, we're going to expect like something slightly different out of these sets.
I'm into that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good direction, just because I think that's where they were headed anyway, with the release of stuff like Iconic. But this is the 25th year of Magic the Gathering. Happy birthday, Magic! And Masters 25 is the celebration session set they were doing. There's cards from, I believe, every standard legal release and some Commander products, I think was how they did it.
Oh. Yeah, a lot of good Commander reprints.
Yeah, they reprinted a bunch of stuff that has crept up in price over the years. First category is not downshifts. We'll cover the downshifts because we know that's what everyone cares about. We did want to briefly talk about some cards that were getting a little bit pricey and got reprinted in this. And first up, one that's actually pretty cheap in paper, but is something like $5 online, right?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's Exclude. It's 2 and a blue, counter creature spell, draw a card. Only released in Invasion prior to now, I think, is the main culprit.
There was a promo, but even that didn't really adjust the price as much as you might think it would.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about the art on this thing?
Maybe it was printed in Commander. I like it a lot. What they've done with a lot of the reprints is they've done some sort of like throwback art, and Snaring Bridge has the same thing. if they've given it new art. And I think that's really cool because the original exclude is Teferi like banishing a Phyrexian Rager, and this is just like sure generic, but a Phyrexian Rager getting banished. So I do like the artwork a lot.
Yeah, they did a good job with this. Then we've got, let's just go through these real quickly. Unearth was like $1 in paper, a few bucks online. Lightning Bolt got another reprint, always good, always a staple, always going to be needed. Ancient Stirrings had been creeping up. That's getting a reprint, even though it's not that widely played. Nettle Sentinel, I did not realize was a $5 card, and is now down to like $1 on pre-order.
Yeah, it was extremely expensive.
Yeah, just real pricey because it had never seen a reprint. Then we got Rancor at uncommon, so that's going to come down again. It was about $1. And Utopia Sprawl, which was hovering around $4 or $5, is getting reprinted, but what is the big news this year on this Masters set, Adrian, for us?
The big news is that Ash Barons is getting a reprint. Finally. Kalu Kalei, and it's going to have a foil too.
Yeah, and it is getting reprinted at uncommon, which people are having a knee-jerk reaction. It's not going to put enough back into the environment to drastically reduce the price. Pre-orders for the non-foil version of this reprint are already at half price or less of the original. So I don't think there's any room to complain on this one.
No, dude, it's just solid.
Yeah. And also I think this one's going to look real sweet in foil, because one thing we didn't talk about is because this has almost every set in Magic's history, one of the things they did was every card has a watermark of the set symbol of the set that it was originally printed in. And Ash Barons has that neat little Commander 2016 little shield sort of thing. So I think that's going to look real nice in foil. Also, you can get them in foil now.
Yeah. You can finally foil out your blue-red Delver deck.
Yeah, I think
it's cool.
I think you can foil out the entirety of that now. Maybe a couple sideboard cards, but so those are sort of the good things that are just getting reprinted. They were all getting a little pricey, either online, paper, or both. They will come back down. This is my reminder. Pick these things up if you want to play Pauper long term. Pick up your Place Barons a couple of weeks after the set drops. They'll probably be about $1 a piece. You will play them. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, get Ash Barons. If there's anything that I can tell anyone to like do right now, as soon as this comes out, get Ash Barons.
Yeah.
You will thank me later.
It will creep back up because this is a not super easy card to reprint. Just pick up your copies. I'm picking up 2 play sets just because I might as well, right? All right. Adrian, how about you get us started on the downshift? We're going as per usual in word order and then alphabetically.
Mike, does the phrase "with pleasure" get you knowing how excited I am about these? I'm going to start us off. Are you ready?
Yep.
I'm going to start us off with the Return to Ravnica special Fencing Ace. Now, maybe you drafted, for some reason, you back in RTR, triple RTR, you drafted Selesnya for some extremely odd reason. You might have played this alongside another card called Ethereal Armor, which is very good. But anyway, Fencing Ace is a 1/1 for 1 and a white. It's a human soldier with double strike. Honestly, not that exciting. I kind of hyped it up just a little now, but I don't think Heroic wants this really. I don't think White Weenie wants it really. I mean, maybe the Soldiers deck wants it, but 2 mana for a 1/1 is a hard sell, even if it has double strike, in my opinion.
I kind of would like this along anything that, any sort of access where you can get this out of bolt range. Specifically, I don't think this is the worst in mono white Heroic. Like, it wears most of the auras in that deck pretty well, and you are running a decent amount of instant speed interaction to make sure that your stuff doesn't die. I do think it detracts from the Heroic plan of the deck, but this thing also carries equipment well. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Bone Splitter in our format, but I think you could conceivably see this as like a 1 to 2 of somewhere in a whitelist that just needs like that extra little punch. Anything else on this?
No, not really. I think it's pretty unexciting. So I'm sorry that we're getting off to that kind of start. But yeah, I think it is what it is.
Well, continuing on that trend, we've got to the Moors, which is 1 and 2 white for a 3/1 spirit with flying. There's not much to be said here. I think this is a new body for the format for its mana cost, but X1s are generally not great in this format. Like, the best I can say for this is it trades with Delver, but it also trades with a 1/1. Like, this isn't good. I think this is one of like the only like serious misses in the whole section of downshifts. But the next one isn't. What do you have for us next, Adrian?
The next one is Loyal Sentry, which is a rare down to common special. So that's exciting in and of itself. I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't going to get 4 copies of this because I like to own the format. But I don't really know what to think of it. A bunch of my friends at work think it's fine because it's actually better than Death Touch, because what you can do with Loyal Sentry is you can block the creature, you can flicker Loyal Sentry, the creature still dies, and you don't even take trample damage because this is a trigger that occurs before damage actually happens. So if you block something with Rancor...
Before we get too far into this, how about we explain what this thing actually does?
Sorry, I have the card in front of me, and I'm sorry, y'all. Just like got kind of away from me. It's W for a 1/1, a human soldier, so a relevant creature type. And when Loyal Sentry blocks a creature, destroy that creature in Loyal Sentry.
Okay, so this thing it's got the Dead Iron Sledge text on it. So you were just saying before I cut you off to read it through, you were talking about flickering this. Like, what other applications do you see for this thing?
It's good versus Rancor is really the only other thing I can see it as, because since the trigger happens before damage actually resolves, you won't take any damage from the trample. But I don't know if white is in the market for what is essentially a 1/1 Death Touch 90% of the time. I guess it's also good versus Teamer Battle Rage, so there is that. So maybe it has more maybe it'll end up being better than I think it is, just because the utility of being able to block a trample creature is better than I think it is. But it seems pretty unexciting, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a gut reaction from me to like kind of be like, oh well, this is kind of in the realm of the condemns and the paths and swords, because it is quote unquote 1 mana removal. I don't know. This is a weird one. There is a decent chunk of flying in this format, but this thing does take down anything that it blocks in a color that is, it doesn't have a lot of ways to interact with creatures that are super efficient. It's got Journey to Nowhere, and that's pretty much it. But I don't know. I like this. I like the fact that it's not strictly a color pie break, because it's not actually got Death Touch, but I like the card as a common in terms of design. I'm just not sure where it goes. Like, I think the flicker thing is cute. Like, being able to flicker it so that it's a new item and it doesn't blow up to its own ability is neat. But I just wonder, like, then you're just kind of trading flicker for a creature. I don't know.
Yeah, and then you're in blue-white for some reason. Like, it feels, it's a very odd card, and you're right. I just don't know where you put it.
There is also the fact that, like, if you can't flicker it, this thing doesn't, as a counterpoint to Fencing Ace, this thing wears any sort of enchantment or equipment-based buff pretty poorly, because it's always trading in combat. I don't know. It just feels like this might not quite have a home yet. I think it's an interesting card, and I think that having this sort of effect in white is helpful. I just wish that their 1 mana removal was a little bit more all sizes kind of deal.
If I can also talk about maybe the cost of Loyal Sentry, it's actually kind of weird, because as we've been sitting here, I've been looking up the prices of these cards currently, just so I can add them to my collection before the set goes live. Loyal Sentry is actually the most expensive out of the cards that I've deemed to be like maybe potentially playable. It's 28 cents a copy, which just an interesting fact.
Huh.
The other highest one is Balduvian Horde at 19 cents, and then the rest of them are like 1. So I just think that's interesting, and I wonder where Loyal Sentry is already seeing play on Moto.
I think it could just be the fact that it's probably fairly rare. I'm guessing that this came in one of the Master Editions.
It's from 10th edition, and then it was in Dual Decks, Elspeth versus the other Venser. That's him.
Huh. Weird. I don't know.
Yeah, just interesting.
Yeah, I think that we will at some point see Loyal Sentry. I just don't know that it has like a slam dunk home yet. I think this is something to keep your eye on, and I definitely think it's worth picking up copies because it's a common from a master set. This thing's going to be like 10 cents.
Yeah, it's going to be sweet.
All right. Next up, we've got a classic here, Savannah Lions. It's a white for a 2/2 cat. That's 2/1. Sorry, yeah. I misread that in a drastic way. So in Eternal Masters, right? Was that where we got Elite Vanguard?
Yeah, and this is also a rare to common, I think, but this card is bad.
Yeah, so Elite Vanguard never really saw that much play. I definitely tested it in White Weenie as a way to turn on and enable Renegade Freighter, and it was okay. Like, it's not thrilling, but Tron decks are running main deck Electrickery. I just can't justify jamming in something else that dies to Electrickery, even if it is slightly above the curve.
Yeah, card is not great.
I will say I like the new art. The new art is like, that's neat.
Hold on. I'm looking at the old Savannah Alliance. If it is what I think it is, yep, it's
bad.
Yeah, it's not great.
There were people complaining that they didn't use the old art for it, and I was like, no.
The Magic has gone in a very different direction.
Yeah, this is just like a really gorgeous depiction of a pair of lions. I think if anything, the only thing I'd complain about is this could just be an illustration of lions in the savannah. It's not dreadfully magical. All right, how about you take us away with something more interesting than a vanilla creature?
Yeah, I'd love to, because I actually like this next card a lot. I think this next one is actually primarily a commander reprint, because it's a P3K card. It's borrowing 100,000 arrows. And it's 2 in a blue for draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. And as much as, I am not a fan of the deck, I think it's a tier 2 deck. I think this slots directly into Turbo Fog. Imagine this. Imagine a scenario where you have out Jace's Erasure, you tangle your opponent, and then on your next turn, you cast Borrowing 100,000 arrows, draw 5, mill you for 5. It's perfect. It's a great card.
Okay, so my question is, there also exists Keep Watch, which is this. It's an instant, but they have to be attacking when you cast Keep Watch. Are you kind of counting on just being able to do some sort of fog, cast this on the next turn? Is that where you're headed with this?
Yes, and I think that this is much better in that regard, because Keep Watch would require you to have both up the fog and the Keep Watch, so you can't use it really as effectively. But this one, barring 100,000 arrows, you could even do it if your opponent, is just tapped out for whatever reason, like you fog and then you get to draw the cards and then you get to make your land drops. I think that this card is stronger, even though the other one's an instant. I mean,
it also distinctly has a better name. I really enjoy, the whole flavor of Portal 3 Kingdoms, but I can definitely see where you're coming from. Do you see any home for this besides Turbo Fog?
No, not really. I mean, maybe Tron, like maybe. As like a one of, because you do run fogs in Tron as well, so it could be effective for drawing a bunch of cards if you're in the. Okay, this is the scenario I see it for Tron. If you're already on the fog lock plan, because you're just waiting to get into some action to actually start doing stuff to your opponent, and you're just casting the flashback Moment's Peace a whole bunch, then I think borrowing 100,000 arrows is a little bit more appealing. It's not like you need the mana, right? You could easily leave up the flashback or the initial cost of Moment's Peace, and then once your opponent basically has to keep attacking you, and then you cast borrowing 100,000 arrows when they tap out. So I don't know, maybe there.
Yeah, and I mean with a deck like Tron, you're casting quickly enough where I feel like even if this is a draw 5, you're just going, all right, well, draw 5 and then move to my end step and pitch 2 or 3 of these. So I can see where you're coming from on this. Next up is a card that I'm actually really excited for, and I have some thoughts on. This is Court Hussar. It's 2 and a blue for a 1/3, which is a body we have seen before in the form of a Seagate Oracle. The difference here is this one has vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, it lets you look at the top 3 cards of your library. 1 goes to your hand, and the rest go to the bottom of your library in any order. And then it does have the caveat, when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless white was spent to cast it. So this is a Seagate Oracle that anticipates when it comes into the battlefield. I really like this card.
I like it too. My only detraction from it is that you have to play it in blue-white. And if you are flickering it, which is something I think that deck might want to do, you would then have to pay an additional mana in order to prevent it. It would die. If you flickered it, it would just die. You're not casting it anymore.
Yeah, so it's not flickerable, which is a big downside. I do like the fact that against some sort of like token deck, this thing can kind of, attack, and they can either, triple block it with 1/1s, or you're just pinging in for 1. And since it has vigilance, you can still block 1/1s with it. The main thing I like about this is I'm thinking of this in a blue-white trust, where you could use this as part of a digging engine to try and get to, I'm imagining, Stonehorn Dignitary wall rock. So you're basically in exchange for being able to also flicker Seagate, with this you're looking 1 card deeper on the ETB, and you're also getting a vigilant creature that can kind of chip in if the board state's amenable to that. I don't know. I really like Anticipate and Impulse effects. I think they're really solid in this format.
I would be very curious to see how this card pans out.
Yeah. And like, obviously it has a very nice comparison in Seagate Oracle, so we'll be able to see which one of these starts seeing play more.
You'll be able to Seagate which one of them. I'm kidding.
No, bad. I do anticipate Seagate will still be played over this in a lot of cases, but this is one that I'm excited for as it's a sort of side grade, if you will. What's up next, Adrian?
Up next, we got Dragon's Eye Savants, which is, I think, completely unplayable. 1 in a blue for a human wizard. It's an 0/6. It has Morph. You can turn it face up by revealing a blue card in your hand, and when it's turned face up, you look at target opponent's hand. Also, it's a 0/6. Did I mention that? I'm not sure.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you're not into the idea of like the 3 mana Gitaxian Probe that leaves you with a 0/6?
Yeah, that's I think what I'm saying. Yeah, the card's not great.
No, I know. I forget how was this good in Cons Limited? I forget. I don't think it was.
No, I don't think so at all. I think the best Cons deck was Mardu.
Yeah, I just remember this card in particular being kind of a big old nothing, and it's not doing much here. I don't know. Is there anything else? Is there any possible use you can think of for this thing, or is it just a big old wet fart?
Dude, it's a big old wet fart. It's bad.
All right, fair enough.
I'm sorry for that image, but it's not good.
So next one, and I'm sorry that it shook out this way with the back and forth, but this is a very Adrian card. It's a Ghost Ship. It's 2 blue for a 2/4 creature spirit with flying. Blue, regenerate goat. So
yeah, dude, it's not a pirate though, so I actually don't care, dude.
It's implicitly pirates though. This trope is 100% pirates.
I don't know. It looks like a spirit to me.
It might not have the type line pirates, but this is at least pirate adjacent.
It is pirate adjacent.
So I don't know what to think of this because it's got regenerate on a blue card and it's a 2/4 flyer. I just don't know. This looks like, my gut reaction to stuff like this is that this is bad.
No, dude, it's awful. 4 mana for a 2/4. If you might as well play Spire Golem.
Yeah.
If you have this much blue in your deck, triple blue regenerate, you might as well just play Spire Golem. That's honestly and truly what I think.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from, and just playing this as the 2/4 for 4, that's got to be bad, right? Like that's just miserable.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. It's a neat card. It's neat that they chose to reprint something that is so blatantly outside of the color pie and kind of weird in its flavor in this day and age. But Yeah, I don't know. Now I have a side question here. Would you be more interested in this if it was the planar chaos color shifted version of this Malik of Dawn, which is just white? Exactly.
No.
Exact. Okay. I was just curious if like the fact that there's just a better version of this in its color was turning you off of this, or if you just think it's a bad card regardless of color.
I think it's a bad card regardless of color.
All right. Next up, I'll let you take this one. This one's got a lot of buzz around it. Why don't you let us know what this is?
This is Relentless Rats. Relentless Rats is a 3-drop 2/2, 1 black and a black. But its caveat is that you can have any number of cards named Relentless Rats, and Relentless Rats gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield named Relentless Rats. So needless to say, people think it's awesome, and I don't. It's okay. I just think that there's going to be a lot of decks that are trying to do... trying to go this strategy. And so here's the thing. I think 1 rat is very weak. A 3-drop 2/2 that does nothing when it enters the battlefield is going to be not a very good turn 3 play. Once you have 2 relentless rats on the battlefield, I still don't think you're 100% out of the woods, because your opponent can still interact with it with bolt and then kill the other one maybe in combat. Once you have 3 out, things start to get interesting, because now your rats are 4/4s. Only really Affinity could muster up a defense against an army of 4/4s. Maybe you have some other stuff like Gurmag Angler, but then once you have 5 on the battlefield, then I think you're unbeatable. I don't know if any deck could beat 5/5/5s.
Well, it would be if you have 5 of them, they're 6/6s.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, if you have 4 of them out and they're all 5/5s, I don't know what deck can beat that.
Okay, that's fair. So I guess like this is the first thing. This isn't Pack Rat. That's something that it looks on its face kind of like Pack Rat, because you're paying 3 mana to have this buff effect on all your rats. This is one of those ones where I look at it and I just go, someone is going to 5-0 with this, and I just know it. Like, it's too tempting to kind of just have a deck that's like 18 or 20 lands and then 40 relentless rats. Like, someone is going to go for that as a plan, and there's nothing I can really stop them. I just don't know if it's good. Like, is there some version of mono black that's just like, okay, I'm going to run like 12 removal spells, 20 lands, and then just a pile of these things and just hope that gets there?
Someone is going to try it, and I just don't think it's going to be as strong as people think it's going to be. I think there's too much good interaction, but black is very hard to kill in Pauper. And if you have, like I said, if you have 3 of these on the battlefield, it gets +1/+1 for each other creature named. Okay, so if you have 2 on the battlefield, they are 4/4s, right?
No,
for each other creature, they're 3/3s.
It's each other, yeah.
Okay, sorry. And then, but then you have 3, then it starts to get kind of weird, right? Because they each get plus. No, it's the same. I don't know. I think that people are going to brew with it. I think it's going to have some success. I think the lack of being able to protect the rats might hurt in the long run. But I think that if you are able to play enough of them, I think you can just win.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that if someone isn't doing anything to actively stop your plan, it's going to run away with the game really quickly.
And for what it's worth, too, I think Dark Ritual Rat is bad.
Oh, I think that's awful. I'm just going to get out there ahead of that bus and go, that's not a good play. I know it'll happen. It's going to be bad.
But where I might picture it having a little bit more success is in more of an attrition kind of mono black deck, where you're interested in controlling the board and then start playing your rats. So maybe you wait till even turn 6 to play 2 rats at once after you keep your opponent off of creatures, and maybe you run a bunch of hand discard or a bunch of discard and removal spells.
So are you maybe saying that this is like you run like 6 or 7 of these in a mono black control deck that kind of hates out the opponent's hand?
Yeah, and then you eventually take over the game with rats. And the other interesting thing about this deck is you can also play Unearth. So yeah, you could easily only play 6 or 7 copies of the rats, and they'd still be huge even if you only had 3 of them out. And then you could unearth them if you need to. So actually, I kind of like the direction that this deck is taking now that I've thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, I worry that someone is going to go for, the meme deck that's 40 of these and 20 swamps. Like, I think that's a bad plan. I think there's potential for like this being a finisher. The catch is you do always need a density of them for them to be effective. So I don't know. Like Mono Black has prided itself for years on, winning games just by casting Gray Ogres. Most of them have ETB effects, but maybe a devoting a small chunk of the deck to this as your win con might get there. Next up, unless you got anything else on these little squeakers.
Nope. Let's go to the next one.
All right, next one is from the same cycle as Dragon's Eye Savant. It's Ruthless Ripper, which is a black for a human assassin with Death Touch. It's a 1/1, and it has Morph, so you can cast it face down as a 2/2 for 3 generic mana. And its morph cost to turn it face up is reveal black card from your hand, and then when it's turned face up, target player loses 2 life. I kind of dig this.
It's good in the mono black aggro deck.
Yeah, this seems totally fine. The dome your opponent for 2 when it comes face up is definitely going to be relevant. It's going to eat something, and the first time you cast this, your opponent is probably going to have a more difficult time playing around it than some other cards, but I feel like this is one that after it's been in the format, if it becomes a known value within the format, its value as a card is going to go much down because people are going to start realizing, oh, that morph in mono black is always going to be Ruthless Ripper. Is there anything else that kind of makes this go up or down in value for you?
I think the mono black deck is not very strong, so I don't know if it's really that good, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. Not a whole lot to say on this one because if nothing else, it is a Typhoid Rats with upside. So it's got that going for it, or a Farika's Chosen, I guess. And creature types don't really matter. So yeah, this is, I don't know. I think this is a perfectly fine card. I don't expect it to make huge waves. And if it gets played, if it gets played, I expect the first couple times it's going to be a shock and they're going to get you. And then much like stuff like Mana Tithe, it's never going to really surprise you that much again. How about you take our next common that is a classic card?
The next card is Balduvian Horde. I think this also used to be a rare. It's 2 red for a 5/5, so already good on curve. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you discard a card at random. So for those of you who are newer to the game, people thought that this was going to be red Juzam Jin, which is, at the time that this was printed originally, was considered to be the best creature ever made because it was a 5/5/4/4 with a downside. That used to be how bad creatures were in this game. People thought that Balduvian Horde was like the best card ever, and for a long time in its lifetime as like a playable competitive card, it was actually pretty valuable.
This used to be a $20 rare, if you can believe that.
It was actually a valuable card. In Pauper, I am interested in trying it out in a mono red, sort of Sly deck, which is where it really originated. I don't think the card disadvantage is bad. 5/5 is much bigger than anything in that deck gets. So I would be interested to see it as a curve topper. I think 4 mana is also the sweet spot for red deck wins. I think if you start going to 5, it's too much. So I don't know. I'm curious because on its face it doesn't seem very good, but maybe it's fine.
Okay, so I guess my concern here would be that if you're running this in red deck wins, you're basically saying I plan some games I'm going to get to 4 mana and still have a card in my hand. And that, I think, is actually the thing that kills it for me, is the fact that the deck this would go into is mostly 1 and 2 drops. I worry that by the time you draw Boldugian Horde and have 4 mana available for it, you're either going to be hellbent or you're going to have a card in hand that would be relevant to advancing your game plan, and the Horde is just going to sit there and fester in your hand.
Sure. Yeah. And then
like,
if you go ahead.
If this had haste or trample, I'd feel much better about it. Like, just some way to guarantee that your like what is a fairly large investment for red deck wins is actually going to pay off in a tangible way.
Yeah, and also we already have like cards like Goblin Heel Cutter, which I think are probably what that deck really wants because it lets you get in, and this card doesn't really.
We do have something along that axis to discuss a little bit later in here, but unless you have anything else, I'm going to move on to this next one here.
Yep, let's do it.
All right, this next one, Cinderstorm, 6 and a red, sorcery. Cinderstorm deals 7 damage to target creature or player. I don't know, dude. Like, what do you say about this thing?
Well, Mike, I'd say it's a 7 mana, deal 7 damage, target creature or player.
Yeah,
it's bad.
Yeah, like the only deck that can play this conceivably on like a reliable basis is Tron, and I guess when compared directly to Rolling Thunder, it costs a red less. Like it costs 2 mana less. One of them is a colored mana, so it's got that going for it. But like,
no, it is bad. Rolling Thunder, you can divide up the damage, so it also doubles as a board wipe. This card deals 7 damage to a creature or a player for 7 mana. Big whoop. It's bad.
Yeah, it's not good. Take us on to, let's say red or past this next card.
I actually do like this next card. It's called Crimson Mage. It's actually part of a cycle of mages that do similar things based on their color pie abilities. Crimson Mage is a 2/1 for 1 and a red, and you can pay red. Target creature you control gains haste until end of turn. That doesn't seem bad in a mono red deck.
No, and I do like the fact that this does hidden mode of it's 1 red for a 2/1 with haste.
Yeah,
because it can give itself haste. I guess my question is, so Red Deck Wins already runs a decent amount of creatures that have haste and also runs Goblin Bushwhacker. Is there somewhere else that Crimson Mage might fit? I'm specifically thinking of didn't for a while there was that one list that 5-0'd the Blue Red Blitz list that ran, what is it? That card from Amonkhet, the one that taps to grant another creature haste.
Oh, Earth Shaker Kenra, is that what it's called?
No, that's the rare. I forget what it's called. It's something goofy. It's like a Bloodlust Inciter, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I don't know though.
We'll lie and say that that's totally it. But I guess do you like this in some sort of like blitz list where you're hoping to just be able to kind of combo off in one turn, and this is your haste enabler?
3 mana haste. I don't think I like that very much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see this being playable. It's just I don't know where it fits right now.
Yeah, and you're right about it. Mono red, like with Goblin Bushwhacker. Goblin Bushwhacker gives it to your whole team, right? So why would you ever do it just so you could do it one at a time like this?
Actually, you know what? I just thought of something. There's those like big dumb green Tron lists right now. I know.
Oh, yeah, I've been playing that quite a bit.
I know that this is really color intensive. If you shift slightly into red green, because that way you get Rolling Thunder as well, right? Would this fit there? Because it does let you power out like Ulamog's Crusher with haste.
Yeah, I was going to say, giving Ulamog's Crusher haste does seem pretty good. But you're right about the color intensity. But, I mean, if you have 2 Prophetic Prisms and Tron, you could play this off of 1 land. You could play this off of an Urza's Tower.
Yeah. Also, what about this Reanimator?
Reanimator already plays the Fangs, and I think that's a little bit more conducive to its plan because you can discard, not Fangs, you know what I mean, the red one. You can discard it. Breath. Yeah, you can discard that, and then when you reanimate the creature, that comes out too. So I think that its game plan is already a little bit more decided there.
Okay, that's fair. I do kind of like the idea of this in like a red green Tron. I do think that the color intensity of it is going to be a drawback, but just being able to like for giving all of your creatures kicker red, this creature has haste. I think I
Seems
think
good.
that,
Yeah,
and like I don't know. I don't think it's you're usually not going to be given more than one or two things haste. So it's not like you're going like all right, I need to generate 4 red mana out of nowhere, but
for sure.
all right, next up, we've got something that we've actually talked about in Red Deck Wins. Frenzied Goblin, which is a red for a Goblin Berserker. He's a 1/1, and when it attacks, you may pay red. If you do, target creature can't block this turn. What do you think about this gentleman?
I like this card quite a bit. It's a lot like Heel Cutter. Heel Cutter might be a little bit better because you can keep casting it from your hand to trigger your guys who need a creature into the battlefield in order to attack, or you need to cast someone to attack. But I do still think it's good. Being able to get around a creature every turn is pretty strong. So I would be interested to see in where it slots in. I personally think it's good, and I will be testing it.
So what about this in Goblins? I
actually like it a lot less in Goblins.
Okay. Are you thinking just the fact that that's a deck that usually almost never has mana lying around and needs to be as aggressive as possible, or what's your reasoning there?
I think Goblins is a little bit more Goblins is a little slower. I think that this is a much faster card so that you can start getting your beats in early. Goblins also already has a lot of baked in evasion because it has
Slend
the guys the ones where you sacrifice stuff.
Sledder and Raider.
Yeah, it already has those, and it has Heel Cutter. So I'm not really 100% sure that it's really needed.
Okay, that I think that's totally fair, and for what it's worth, I do like Heel Cutter since it's as you mentioned, enabled Goblin cohorts and Mog, whatever they are, Mog conscripts. There we go,
Mog thingies.
Yeah, the creatures that need you to have cast a creature spell this turn. For what it's worth, I do actually think this is the best Frenzied Goblin art that we've gotten. I do not care for the promo.
That's fair.
All right. Why don't you continue taking us down the Goblin path?
All right. Up next, we have Hordling Outburst, a downshift from Cons. I like this card quite a bit. 1 and a red gets you 3 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens. Plain and simple.
All right. So is this better than Dragon Fodder?
Yes. 1 more token for 1 more mana, I think is very worth.
Okay, so does this see play in Goblins, or is this possibly pointing us towards some sort of red, possibly another color? Not going to say it's white, but it's probably white. Some sort of red-white tokens list that potentially could eschew some of the Skyfisher synergy for just crapping out a ton of tokens. Do you think this has a home right now?
I would be curious to see in the Rakdos control list where you're also playing the Archer.
The Archer. Oh, Firebrand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about this.
What do you think of that?
Okay. So if you're thinking about like Firebrand tokens kind of with black for removal.
Yeah, because that's kind of what that deck was doing anyway.
Okay. So Hordling Outburst, Dragon Fodder. Like, I don't think you need to go as deep as Krenko's command, but yeah, I could see that. Like, you're definitely soft to trickery, but outside of that, I feel like you're probably pretty effectively applying pressure and also having a ton of chump blockers if necessary. I don't hate the idea. Is there anywhere else that really wants to pay just 3 mana for 3 power and 3 toughness?
Maybe the Boros deck. But I don't know if it would go in there because you already have Kuldotha Rebirth, which is a little bit more conducive to the strategy. But I guess you could play this in a Oh, in the one that doesn't play Kuldotha Rebirth, you can play it in like Monarch, but I don't know if it's strong enough there. Sorry.
For what it's worth, I kind of like it in traditional goblins just because it's with Bushwhacker. This is an extra 6 points of damage. With Sledders, these things functionally have haste because you can pop them and put their power onto something else. I do like the fact that it lets you go wide. I don't think Goblins is really in prime shape right now, but I could see played in a Goblins list. Probably as a 2 of at most, I would imagine. Next up, this is somewhat nostalgic because I remember players talking about this when I started playing Magic. Jackal Pup. It's a red for a 2/1 Jackal, and whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to you.
Classic. I like Jackal Pup.
So compared to the other red 1-drops with 2 power, this has a downside that acts along a very different axis than most of the other ones. So most of the other ones either require you to cast a creature or have it attack with another creature. Do you think that the Jackal Pup downside of when it gets blocked, you get domed for damage, is that better than needing to reliably cast creatures or needing to reliably have another creature on the board?
I think that in order of best to worst, this one is the best. I don't think you really care about damage being done to you in the mono red deck. I think that the second best is having a creature enter the battlefield. I think that's relatively easy. And I think the worst one is having 2 creatures attack at once, just because, then that forces you to attack when maybe you don't want to with some, what am I trying to say? I think that one's the most restrictive.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that. I know that Jackal Pup has seen, or Jackal Familiar has seen play in the past, but I've definitely run it in Goblins and Red Deck wins, and the amount of times it can't attack are definitely non-zero, whereas this definitely, you can just slam with it.
Yeah.
And the next card we have up is going to go to you, Adrian. Why don't you tell us about this classic piece of removal?
So we can really play old school decks now. The next card is Pillage. 1 red sorcery. Destroy target artifact or land. It can't be regenerated. This seems like a good sideboard card to me.
Yeah, it just kind of conserve your slots in a mono red deck by giving you a way to answer both problematic lands, mainly Tron lands, and artifacts at the same time. I will note, though, the only acceptable version of this card is definitely the Alliance's one with the Richard Kane Ferguson art. I'm sorry, it just looks...
That's the one with that's the one with Karavec on it?
Yeah, it looks way too sweet to pass up. So I think this is just a solid mono red sideboard card, though. I don't think there's that much depth to it. I don't know. Is there any sort of sweet like side case scenarios you can think of with this? I think it's just like a reasonable Stone Rain that also can hit an artifact.
It seems good versus Affinity, although Ancient Grudge is probably just better, and it seems good versus Tron because you have the mode of either blowing up the Prophetic Prism or blowing up a Tron piece.
That is true. Now, this versus Molten Rain. Molten Rain only blows up a land, but it also domes them for 2. If you were running like Red Deck wins tomorrow, which would you go with?
Pillage.
All right, fair enough. I
think Pillage is better.
I think that speaks legions. I'll take this next one, which is got a lot of text on it. Wow. The next card is Skeletonize, which is 4 and a red, skeleton instant. Skeletonize deals 3 damage to target creature. When a creature dealt this way dies this turn, create a 1/1 black skeleton creature token with black regenerate this creature. What on earth is this?
It doesn't seem very good. It's 5 mana.
It really doesn't.
It's cool. The flavor's there. It's a one-way trip to Flavor Town, baby.
Like, this is, no matter how you look at this is either an Incinerate or it's a lightning. Oh, wait. No, it's only a creature. Oh, God, this is even worse. Never mind. This card is bad. Like,
the flavor is really sweet, though.
The flavor is sweet, and I'm sure that this is probably pretty good and limited, because it does kill their thing and give you a thing that can potentially block one of their threats for a long time. But no, we've got such better burn than this. This is like, I'd much rather For reference, I think you'd be better off playing something like Cruel Revival, which is 4 and a black, destroy target non-black creature, return a zombie from your graveyard to your hand, than this, even though it prices you into playing zombies. Next one. Take it away, Adrian.
We got Anox Survivalist. Oh, yeah. 1 and a green for 2/1 with the extremely original ability Megamorph, which is morph, but you get a 1/1 counter. It morphs like normal. You can Megamorph it for 1 and a green. When you turn it face up, you destroy target artifact or an enchantment an opponent controls. So I don't know if we really have a green beatdown deck. I mean, maybe. Excuse me. I guess we do have a mono green beatdown deck. It's Stompy, and this is essentially a 5 mana Reclamation Sage in that aspect.
Yeah, it is split over 2 turns, and it is going to be a 3/2 when you flip it up. Now,
yeah, I actually don't mind it actually in Stompy. That seems fine.
Yeah, I think the 3 mana on the front side is going to be the real taxing part of this for that deck, just because it is pretty land light. But I don't fully hate this, and could see that if we were ever in a situation where either the online or like a local metagame starts to become very boggles or affinity heavy, where this could be somewhat justifiable as a main deck inclusion. Obviously, I'd much rather have something like Reclamation Sage. I think that's all around generally a better card, but I don't hate this. I think this could see play in theory. I guess my only question would be like, Elves isn't going to play this because I think it's only ever going to play. Oh God, I'm blanking on the name of it. The Conspire one.
Yeah, Gleeful Sabotage, which is also what Stompy plays, but this does give you a creature afterwards. So yeah. I don't think it's awful.
Yeah, I was just trying to analyze Elves because they're the type where they could pay the 3 mana and then pay 2 to flip it up immediately, just with how that deck's progression goes. But I do like it. I like creatures that double as answers to threats. So I don't know. Not much else to discuss with this one. I'm going to move ahead on to our last card. Our last card is Assembly Worker, which is 3 generic mana for an artifact creature, Assembly Worker. And it is a 2/2. And it taps to give target Assembly Worker creature +1/+1 until end of turn.
Now, why is this important, though, Mike?
So we have Self-Assembler. And Self-Assembler was released in Kaladesh. And Self-Assembler was this weird one-off that it's a weird one. So Self-Assembler is 5 generic mana for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an Assembly Worker creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library, and it itself is an Assembly Worker. So you can chain these together. I don't think that a Gray Ogre that can pump one other creature in the entirety of the format is dreadfully good. Unless I'm wrong. Am I wrong here?
No, I think there's only 2 Assembly Workers. The reason that this is important is because before, the other Assembly Worker could only go get itself. Self-Assembler. Now it can go get this Assembly Worker.
Huh. Did you actually know that there are 2 other Assembly Workers that are not named Mishra's Factory? One of them is an uncommon, so we can't play it. But the other one is a common. It's a 3/3 for 5 generic mana with Improvise. So I guess it is slightly more relevant than I thought it was in this format. But
you could also get the what's the removal spell? 1 on a black +3 -3 nameless inversion. You can't. Why not?
Self-Assembler specifies an Assembly Worker creature card.
No, you're right. It does. Oh, dang.
Yeah, like they even nerfed that. Now, I will note that in this set for limited, Self-Assembler is getting a reprint in Masters 25. Mishra's Factory is also getting a reprint in Masters 25. It's a land that turns into an Assembly Worker creature.
But you can't fetch it then.
You can't fetch for it, but like there's synergy across those in limited. It's not amazing synergy, but it is there. So Assembly Worker, I think, again, is just It's not dreadfully effective even when all the parts are there, but it's definitely not effective at where I didn't even realize that one of these other cards was an assembly worker, and the one that isn't all that great. So that brings us to the close of Masters 25. What did you think about this set as a whole, and what did you think about its effect? What do you think its effect on Pauper is going to be?
I think its effect on Pauper is going to be pretty negligible, to be honest with you. But I do like the set. I think it's a fun set. I think it's going to be very fun to draft, and I think there's a lot of value here for new players. My biggest complaint is that people are complaining that there's no oubliette, and like, come on, guys, like, or guys and girls, like, this is a great set. And if you're new to the format, there's a lot of value reprints here, just waiting for you to pick them up. And for the rest of us, sure, there's some new toys. I don't really think the metagame will shift very dramatically, but there's some new stuff to play around with. So I really think it's fine for the format.
Yeah, I think we're not shaking anything too much. I think this is going to be a good set to draft. I'm definitely going to get out and draft it once, maybe twice. There were some neat downshifts for Peasant Cube, so I'm happy about that. And I think mainly, as with all these master sets, there's a bunch of stuff getting reprinted that kind of needed it from a price perspective. And obviously, there's new art on a bunch of stuff, which is really neat. There's a bunch of really weird reprints that have gotten up there in price. I guess my other question for you, Adrian, what for you is the most nostalgic card out of this set? Because this was a set that was mainly sold on the premise of going through the entirety of Magic and kind of getting greatest hits. Like, what is that one card that just kind of ticks off that nostalgia checkbox for you?
Dude, I don't know. Really, none of them, I guess. No, I think the ones from Cons, probably, because I drafted that set a bunch. Triple Cons, so Hordeling Outburst. Really, I think is the one that does it for me. I do have some fond memories of Loyal Sentry and Duels of the Planeswalkers. What about you?
For me, it is. I think it's got to be Plague Wind, because it's a very big dumb
nice,
spell. Yeah. And Prophecy was one of the first sets that I'd ever played. I started in late Masks, early Nemesis, and I remember Plague Wind and that and just being like, wow, this is the best Magic card they've ever printed. It doesn't get better than a 9-mana Wrath. Doesn't ever.
It doesn't kill your stuff, dude. It's good.
Yeah, no, it's one-sided. Like, how are they going to come back from that? By the time I've gotten to 9 mana, I've cast a bunch of stuff. Like, I'm just going to, cast this, and then I'm going to cast my Avatar of Woe for 2 black and keep them off creatures for the rest of the game. That's real Magic.
I do love Avatar.
All right. I think that kind of brings us to a close here. I think this was a successful set. I'm glad that it happened. Obviously, people are never going to be 100% happy with everything was, so I'm not shocked that there were some complaints, but I think by and large, none of these reprints are going to be Peregrine Drake levels of problems. None of them are really going to do anything wonderful for the format either. I think it's just going to kind of progress the format a little bit. And I think more importantly, the reprints bringing the price down on a bunch of cards that are widely played in the format is really, really good for the health of the format as a whole. Also, pick up your Ash Barons when they go down in price, please. Just let's take care of this. Yeah, like just do it. You will never, ever have to tweet at us complaining about the price of Ash Barons ever again. I promise you. All right. You want to take us out of the show here, Adrian?
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. This podcast brought you support of our patrons. Consider supporting us if you like the show. Today's shout out goes to Deathbite. Check for this video in the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you, if you listen to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list for an idea or a topic, you can contact us either via our website or directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to my LGS Pets Games and Mike's LGS JP Comics, and of course the ever musical L. You can find our theme song Quantitative and other great tracks at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELL. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.